So if you're having feelings of wanting to quit on God, I'm glad you watching this video because I think you'll be heavily encouraged by this. You know, a lot of times we get to this point where we're following God, you start experiencing feelings of overwhelming fear or doom, or you might be getting a bunch of cascading memories, bad memories. This could be from a situation in your life, your childhood, anything really. You just get to the point where you just feel like in relationship with God, where you just want to quit. You're like, I've had enough. I can't take anymore. You also might have had a lot of witchcraft done on you, or as a child, or at your life. Lots of experiences of negativity, physical abuse. You went through these moments in your life. First of all, I want to say, if you're going through this, and sometimes there's times where we even feel stuck to the point where you're praying, you're reading your Bible, and those feelings don't go away. Like you're stuck in those feelings. For me personally, when I go through these kind of emotions, the only thing that really helps me, there's actually two things that probably help me the most. But the first thing is that music is one of them. Listening to music or some really uplifting gospel songs and stuff like that. But the second thing is, if you're really stuck, what I tend to do is I'll just start running. Like I'll do sprints, I'll do something to get my body off of those emotions, because these are basically stuck emotions. You're stuck in emotions that you went through at a period of time of your life. So if you're really, really stuck, that's what I recommend. I'm not a therapist or a trained psychologist, but I suggest those things to really think about, because they work for me. And then after a couple of days, then you're back to normal. That's just a recommendation for you to think about. But otherwise, you can have feelings of like where you just want to quit because you just feel like it gets too hard. And I want to really, really, really encourage you today, because there's some great examples in the Bible that really, I think, would encourage you greatly. And the first one's in Deuteronomy chapter 8, starting at verse 1. It says, "Be careful to follow every command I am giving you today, so that you may live and increase and may enter and possess the land the Lord promised on oath to your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble you and to test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. He humbled you, causing you to hunger and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your clothes did not wear out, and your feet did not swell during these 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord disciplines you. Observe the commands of the Lord your God, is walking in obedience to him and revering him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs gushing out of the valleys and hills, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce and you will lack nothing, a land where the rocks are iron and you can dig copper out of the hills." So I wanted to really encourage you with this last part, because really God is saying, like, hey, if you obey my commands, that this God's going to give you incredible blessings. But he also says this is to test your heart. And when we go through this humbling experience, he says that he humbled us and tests us. And many times that God takes us to the point of the end of ourselves is so that at the end he can heal us, because if we never went deeper, if we never went through these difficult situations, then we wouldn't be healed. We would be these people that are emotionally stunted, that never get to grow as people. We're never going to be tougher. We're never going to be experience things that lead to greater and greater experiences in our life. So he has to dig up the muck and mire. And sometimes it's very heavy. Sometimes this stuff can be very heavy because it brings back memories. It could bring back bad childhood memories, abuse, witchcraft done on you as a child, all kinds of things that are very difficult. But when God brings it up, he does it to heal you, so that the next time, it's like you get to feel these feelings that you felt at different times. Or maybe as an adult you were abused. Maybe you had a bad relationship, something. cause us to go deeper so that we can grow closer to God. And I want to leave you this last scripture. It's in Exodus chapter 4, starting in verse 10. And this is Moses. Now, this is while Moses, the whole burning bush, he sees the burning bush. It's a miracle. It's basically God's speaking directly to him at this moment, giving him a prophecy. And in the beginning, he gives him a whole bunch of prophecies, but in the beginning it's just very simple. He says, you're going to worship me on this mountain. That's what he tells him, like the first thing he tells him. And, to Moses, I don't think that was really very impressive. And then he gets further on and he tells him, hey, you're going to go speak to the Pharaoh, and a mighty hand's going to compel him to let the people go. And then he even says that they're going to plunder the Egyptians. The Egyptians are going to give them all this wealth as they're leaving, which sounds totally unbelievable. Like, think about Moses where he's at this point. And so finally, in chapter 4, verse 10, Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, nor in the past, nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow speech and of tongue. The Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord, but please send somebody else. And I can almost imagine what Moses was thinking. Because if you think about it, Moses at this point was a fugitive. He had killed an Egyptian. He fled from Pharaoh because Pharaoh was going to kill him. He had tried to help his people, and they basically said, basically their comment to him was, who made you ruler and judge over us? Basically the people were like, his own Israelites were rejecting him, and they didn't want to have anything to do with him. So Moses, at this point, he's living, far away from Egypt. He lives in the wilderness, and he finds this place. Finally, gets a wife and finds this place to live where he basically is like a shepherd. Now, at the earlier point, he was in the house of Pharaoh. Like, he was basically like raised in royalty, and now he's a shepherd. Gets married. He's probably very, not wealthy at all. Just basically watching a bunch of sheep in the wilderness. So you can imagine kind of the feelings that he's going through. Like, that he's basically wasted his life. Had opportunity, but he's blown the opportunities in his life. So then God says, well, Moses, I'm going to send you back. You're the only guy for the job. Like, there's nobody else to do it. And which is like, wow, and as well, he starts telling him, God tells him about all these things he's going to do, how he's going to deliver the people, how he's going to do miracles. And excuse me. And so he's basically going to tell him, he's going to do all these things. And Moses gets to the point where he's basically, I think he's just afraid, and he's thinking back of all these past experiences. And he's like, there's no way this is going to happen. I can't get past these past experiences. Like, none of this went well in the past. But God. But God had this plan and purpose for him. And we find out eventually that Moses agrees, and that God convinces him, we twist his arm to convince him. And then Moses does some of the most incredible, he's the first person in the Bible that can do miracles, that God gives him that ability. And so my whole point in all of this is that God had to take him to the point where he had to get past his feelings. He had to get past being stuck. And God had to force him past it so that he can see his blessings of what's coming, the great things God was going to do in his life. So I want to encourage you today, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you want to quit on God, don't quit on God. If I could say anything, keep going. Keep going. Love God with all your heart. Do not give up, because a lot of times this feeling passes. It's just a feeling. It's just an emotion you feel. And what you start realizing is that the work you're doing, as you obey God, as you do what God asks you to do, it's kind of like you're climbing a mountain. You'll see yourself a quarter up the mountain. You just take the first 500 feet, and then you're a quarter of the way up the mountain, and then you're half the way up the mountain, and so it's like You have to keep going. You have to keep doing whatever God tells you to do. And then at the end, you'll see, hey, you're at the top of the mountain. And then you'll see the great view that the great things that God has for you. Just like he did with the Israelites and put their times of testing. But eventually they got to the promised land. And that's what he wants for you today. So I hope you feel encouraged. I hope you don't want to quit on God. I hope you feel like that you can be encouraged to do whatever it takes to keep on going and not quit. Talk to you soon. Thank you.